The bell rang, signaling the end of another class, and the hallway at Westfield High quickly filled with the chaotic sounds of lockers slamming and students rushing to their next destination. Jasmine Harris, a 16-year-old girl with a quiet demeanor, adjusted the straps of her backpack and carefully made her way through the crowd. The sea of students surged around her, but Jasmine was used to this. She didn't mind the noise or the chaos. She simply wanted to get to her next class without being noticed. Her skin, a deep shade of ebony, stood out against the sea of lighter complexions, but over the years she had learned to blend in, to keep to herself and avoid drawing attention. Being in the background suited her just fine. Jasmine had always been the quiet type, the one who preferred the comfort of books and solitude to the drama and noise of high school life. She was used to the whispers and the sideways glances, having been one of the few black students in a predominantly white school. The stares, the microaggressions, and the subtle insults had become part of her daily routine. But today, as she moved through the hallway, something felt different. It wasn't the usual hum of the school, there was a chill in the air, and it wasn't from the temperature. No, it was the feeling of eyes on her. A group of girls, standing by the lockers near the end of the hall, was staring right at her. Jasmine tried to ignore them, to just keep walking, but she could feel their eyes boring into her back. It wasn't the curious kind of gaze, the kind that asks questions. It was the predatory, judgmental stare of people who wanted to make her feel small, out of place. These were the girls who made her stomach churn. They didn't care about who she was or what she might have to offer. They thrived on making her feel less than, on finding ways to tear her down. Well, look who it is, came the voice of Marissa, the leader of the pack, loud and biting. The lonely black girl, all by herself again. I bet you don't even know how to talk to people. Huh! Jasmine's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her gaze straight ahead, hoping they would move on, hoping they would get bored and leave her alone. But Marissa, with her perfect blonde hair and icy blue eyes, wasn't about to let it go. She stepped into Jasmine's path, blocking her way. Her expression was twisted into a cruel smirk, eyes gleaming with a mix of malice and amusement. "What's wrong, Jasmine?" Marissa taunted, inching closer. Too scared to speak up? Behind her, the other girls giggled, their laughter dripping with mockery. Jasmine could feel her pulse quicken, her body tense, but she refused to show fear. She had learned how to stay calm in these situations, how to ignore the insults, how to let them bounce off her like water off a duck's back. But there was something about Marissa's arrogance, the way she thought she could push Jasmine around without consequences, that made something inside of her snap. Marissa's smile widened as she took another step forward. "Oh, come on. Don't be such a prude. You can't even look at me in the eye." She shoved Jasmine's shoulder roughly, making the other girls laugh louder. "Is that what you want? To be invisible? Or do you just want to be left alone because you know nobody would ever want to hang out with a girl like you?" Jasmine kept her eyes down, focusing on the ground in front of her, trying to will herself past the confrontation. But then Marissa did something that pushed Jasmine past her breaking point. With a swift motion, Marissa reached out and slapped Jasmine hard across the cheek, the sound of the impact echoing down the hallway. For a moment, everything went still. The hallway fell silent as the other students watched in stunned silence. Some of the girls gasped, others looked around nervously, but Marissa just stood there, smug and victorious, as if she had won some sort of battle. The sting on Jasmine's cheek burned, but she didn't react. Not immediately. Jasmine stood there, her breath shallow, her heart pounding. She could feel the heat rising in her cheek, the sensation of the slap still lingering on her skin, but she did not move. She did not flinch. Instead, her mind raced, memories flooding her thoughts like a wave crashing on the shore. Her father's stern voice echoed in her head, reminding her of the lessons he had taught her all those years ago. Her mother's calm but firm words followed soon after, reinforcing the importance of self-discipline, of control, of knowing when to act and when to hold back. You see, Jasmine was not just a quiet girl who blended into the background. She was someone who had been trained in the art of self-defense from an early age. Her father, a former Special Forces operative, had taught her Krav Maga, a deadly martial art designed for real-world self-defense. Her mother, an expert in various forms of self-defense, had shown her how to stay calm under pressure, how to respond with precision and control. Jasmine had grown up learning how to protect herself in any situation, how to defend her body and mind against those who sought to harm her. But despite everything she had learned, Jasmine had always chosen peace. She had chosen to avoid conflict, to stay out of the spotlight, to live her life without drawing attention. She didn't want to hurt anyone, didn't want to be known as the tough girl who could fight. She just wanted to get through high school without drama, without pain. But today, that choice was slipping away. The slap had crossed the line. It wasn't about race anymore. It wasn't about her being different or being an easy target. It was about respect, and Jasmine had had enough. Her right hand subtly clenched into a fist, and for the first time in years, she felt the urge to act. She could feel the heat of the slap still burning on her cheek, but it wasn't anger that flooded her veins now. It was something else, something deep, primal. It was the knowledge that if she didn't stand up for herself now, she would be letting people like Marissa win. Jasmine's voice, when she finally spoke, was low, steady, and calm. "You're making a big mistake, Marissa," she said, her gaze never leaving the other girl's eyes. "You have no idea who you're messing with." Marissa, thinking she had won, threw her head back and laughed. "What? Are you going to cry now?" she sneered. "What can a girl like you even do? What are you going to do, cry or run away?" Jasmine stood taller, the space around her seemingly growing smaller as the tension between the two girls thickened. She could feel the eyes of the students around her, the silence hanging in the air, but she didn't care. "Let's find out," Jasmine said, her voice still calm, but there was a coldness to it now, an edge that Marissa hadn't seen before. The crowd held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Marissa's confident smile wavered, but it was too late. Jasmine had already made up her mind. She wasn't going to let this go. The air was thick with tension as Jasmine and Marissa squared off in the center of the hallway, surrounded by an anxious crowd of students. For a moment, the noise of the bustling school seemed to fade into the background. It was as though time had slowed, leaving only the two girls locked in a silent standoff. Jasmine stood with her back straight, her body taut, every muscle alert and poised for action. Her face remained calm, her eyes focused, betraying no hint of the storm raging inside her. In stark contrast, Marissa still wore the look of someone who had always been in control, someone who had never faced resistance in her life. The group of girls behind Marissa murmured among themselves, their whispers filled with excitement and uncertainty. They had never seen anything like this before, and they weren't sure what would happen next. Marissa's arrogance was clear in every movement she made, but beneath that confidence, there was a flicker of doubt. She had pushed Jasmine to the edge, but had she truly anticipated what would come in return? Marissa stepped forward, her eyes locked on Jasmine's. With a sneer, she pushed her shoulder roughly into Jasmine's, a crude display of dominance. The shove was intended to humiliate Jasmine, to make her feel small, but instead, it ended in failure. Jasmine's body moved with the fluid grace of someone trained to anticipate and control movement. She sidestepped with ease, using the force of Marissa's push to guide her past, leaving the other girl off balance. It was like watching a dance, a well-rehearsed sequence of movements, so smooth and effortless that it caught the entire crowd by surprise. For a moment, there was silence, and then Marissa's voice cut through the air, laced with fury. "You think you're tough, huh?" she spat, her hands balling into fists as she took another step toward Jasmine. "Let's see how tough you really are." Before Jasmine could respond, Marissa lunged forward, swinging a punch with all her strength. Her fist flew toward Jasmine's face with reckless abandon. The punch was wild and unrefined, but it was fast and angry. Most people might have hesitated, might have been caught off guard by the speed, but Jasmine wasn't like most people. Her reflexes were honed by years of training, years of learning how to read every shift in body language, every movement. As Marissa's fist neared her face, Jasmine ducked with the precision of someone who had been through countless sparring sessions. She didn't just avoid the punch, she moved beneath it, as if she had anticipated it from the moment Marissa made her move. With one fluid motion, Jasmine grabbed Marissa's wrist midair, twisting it behind her back with a force that made the crowd gasp in unison. The suddenness of the move, the way Jasmine had so effortlessly controlled the situation, left Marissa disoriented and vulnerable. Before she could even comprehend what had happened, she was on the ground, her arm wrenched painfully behind her back. Jasmine held her there, her grip firm, yet controlled, just enough to make sure that Marissa couldn't escape, but not enough to cause serious harm. The hallway was silent except for the sound of Marissa's breath, sharp and labored, as she struggled against the hold. Her pride was wounded, and her face burned with humiliation. "Let me go!" Marissa hissed, her voice laced with rage. Jasmine's expression remained calm, her voice steady and unwavering as she spoke, her words almost a whisper. "I don't want to hurt you, but you're forcing me to defend myself." The words hung in the air, the weight of them pressing down on Marissa, making her realize just how outmatched she was. But Marissa wasn't ready to admit defeat. She snarled, twisting her body in an attempt to break free. "You're just a freak," she spat, her voice seething with anger. "You think this makes you tough?" Jasmine didn't respond to the insult. She didn't need to. Instead, she tightened her grip on Marissa's arm, using her knowledge of pressure points to keep her in place. There was no need for more words, no need for further violence. Jasmine's body was poised like a weapon, ready to end the fight at any moment. But she hesitated. It wasn't just about winning or showing Marissa who was in control. It was about respect, something that had been lacking from the very start. For a brief moment, Marissa's face softened, her breathing steadied, and she stopped struggling. It was almost as if she realized the futility of her situation. Jasmine had her pinned, and there was no way out. Yet, as the seconds dragged on, Marissa's defiance returned. She gritted her teeth, glaring at Jasmine with a look of pure hatred, determined not to let this be the end of it. Jasmine's mind raced. She could feel the tension building inside of her. She had been trained for moments like this, but she had never wanted to use her skills in this way. She had always believed in resolving conflicts peacefully, but Marissa had made that impossible. Jasmine's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp voice. "What's going on here?" A teacher had appeared at the end of the hall, drawn by the commotion. Her voice was stern, demanding an explanation as she marched toward the two girls. The students who had been watching the fight began to scatter, the thrill of the confrontation quickly fading as the authority of the teacher took over. Jasmine, still holding Marissa in place, looked up. Her expression was calm, almost serene, but there was a quiet intensity behind her eyes. Slowly, she released Marissa's wrist, allowing her to breathe easier. As she stood up, she helped Marissa to her feet, her actions deliberate and careful, showing no sign of triumph, but only a quiet resolve. The teacher, now standing in front of them, glanced between the two girls. "What's going on here?" she repeated, her voice softer now but still firm. Jasmine didn't flinch. She spoke calmly, her voice steady. "Marissa slapped me. I was just defending myself." The teacher turned her attention to Marissa, who was rubbing her wrist and glaring at Jasmine, still seething with anger. "Is that true, Marissa?" The teacher asked, her tone demanding honesty. Marissa, her pride bruised, nodded reluctantly. "Yeah, but she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to hurt me." Jasmine took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the situation settle in her chest. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said softly, "but sometimes people need to learn respect. Without it, there's no peace." The teacher didn't respond immediately. She looked at Jasmine for a moment, as if weighing her words, then turned her gaze to the students who had gathered, the ones who had witnessed the entire scene. "Fighting isn't the answer," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I'll take you both to the principal's office. We'll talk this through." Marissa shot Jasmine one last furious look before she was escorted away. Jasmine stood there for a moment, watching her go. The hallway began to clear, the whispers dying down, but the lingering feeling of the encounter remained. Jasmine hadn't wanted to be a fighter. She hadn't wanted to prove anything to anyone. But in that moment, when Marissa had crossed the line, Jasmine had shown everyone, including herself, that there was more to her than the quiet girl who kept to herself. As the students slowly returned to their classes, whispers of what had happened spread like wildfire. Jasmine Harris, the girl who had always been in the background, had just made her presence known in a way that no one would forget. She had proven that sometimes silence could be louder than words, and that underestimating her could be a dangerous mistake. Jasmine walked away, her heart still calm, her mind at peace. The fight was over, but the lesson had been learned. Never underestimate the quiet girl, for she might just be the one who surprises you when you least expect it. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more thrilling and empowering tales, make sure to subscribe to expect stories for the latest chapters and updates. Don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Let's keep the conversation going. Stay tuned for more exciting adventures.